second question with Nick. This one is with regards to the PPRA. The PPRA has basically issued new rules for real estate agents and non-negotiable ones. And in summary, it's that basically on the 13th of March, the PPRA announced that it had plans to refuse to issue new or renew the new FFC certificates for businesses with less than 40 points on a BEE scorecard. And for this question and just more feedback around the topic and some of the thorny issues and debates that have been happening around this, I'll introduce our newest member of PLA and our latest candidate attorney head BSA to basically just touch on some of the important points that were mentioned and invite Nick and Bruno for comment. Keanu?
Hi. So regarding the new PPRA, and specifically in regards to the triple BEE certificates, the new PPRA specificates in section 48 that requires real estate agencies to meet a level 8 triple BEE in order to act in the capacity of a property practitioner and have a valid FFC. So this has raised many issues amongst the real estate agency and industry, because a lot of people feel like they won't make that that threshold. So the threshold involves a 40 points minimum to gain that certificate. This, however, only applies to people over 2.5 million turnover. If they are above that, then they have to comply with the level 8. Those below will be considered micro businesses, and they are micro exempt entities, and therefore they will automatically be considered just a BEE contender. So this brings many issues to real estate agencies that tend to be, let's say, one-man squads that don't necessarily qualify to make the BEE qualifications of 40 points, but may have a turnover of 2.5 million. So this raises issues. However, we do feel that there could be ways to circumvent that, particularly in the 40 points range. There are many ways to reach that point mark, such as economic development and social economic development. So in further discussion, there are multiple ways. I'd like to ask maybe Nicholas or Bruno if they could elaborate those two.
Yeah, thanks. So really what the message we want to get across is, look, from the perspective of the legislation at this point, this is now part of our legislation. It's legislated, it's in there, that a valid FFC is going to require a valid BEE certificate. It's one of the things that is coming, all right? So we do need to grasp with this at this point, okay? I like the fact that you pointed out, look, people who don't look into these things and want to fearmonger, but do this thing where they go, well, you need a 51% black ownership. BEE is a lot of things, but it's not that crude, okay? There are a lot of different ways to get BEE points, okay? And there are a lot of different methods. It's not necessarily ownership. There are categories, and each of those has points that goes towards an overall score. And it is possible to even get a lowest BEE standard without having a black ownership at all. You can do social developments, etc. So these are possibilities. There are different ways of doing it, and neither Bruno or I are experts in BEE policies. There are plenty of companies out there that can help you do this. But what is important for estate agents to know is, look, this is something that is in our legislation. It's something that's coming. There are serious question marks about how it's going to be applied. So, we've pointed out that obviously there are small one-man bands, and if you work in the property industry, you know that these are the majority of the property practitioners that are out there. Yes, we got our big guys and they've got national footprints, but the majority of our property practitioners in this country are smaller guys just running their little business, trying to carve out a life for themselves. And it does leave some questions with regards to them. What I can say with certainty is, I obviously have some question marks. We've talked about the threshold and what happens with the guys underneath, because they are deemed to be small enterprises, and generally they'll have an assumed BEE compliance because they're small entities. And what happens with the guys in the middle? The best we can do at this point is I can promise you that there's going to be some litigation on this particular matter in the future. Okay, and I think if I'm correct, reading through the news articles, there's lots going around at the moment, but I think some entities have already said that they're going to institute proceedings on these, on this particular piece of legislation. I do want to assure our property practitioners this is part of how legislation works. Okay, it's not anything weird. Government, the legislature creates legislation all the time, and only once that legislation is in the industry, once it's applied, do people start challenging the legislation and finding out exactly where the edges of these laws are. So I know a lot of people are worried about this particular legislation. It is something that you should keep in mind, but I don't necessarily think worry. It's something that will get fleshed out during the course of practice of this. But certainly, I don't want anyone to be under any misapprehension. This is part of our legislation now. It is a requirement, and we're going to have to grapple with it going forward in the future.
Absolutely, yeah. So if that is it, gentlemen, that does bring us to the end of today's two episodes. Well, one question and answer, and then both of them actually discussions. So that does bring us to the end of today's two discussions. Thank you for Keanu for bringing up to speed. And then as this matter obviously develops, if it does go to court, we'll then just be continuing to invite Keanu, and we'll be just discussing it going forward. And yeah, thank you for everybody for joining us again, and we'll see you next week Thursday.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks. Cheers.